Vocabio. Master English your way.
Cheers.
That's really helpful. Well, maybe, Keith, we should go back to nationalising a bit of our national grid.
Or rail, which has effectively been nationalised in the UK for the next 6 months. You know, these are
campaign of heavy nationalised industry under Margaret Thatcher, but also in the
increasing entourage of nationalised institutions. And it's pretty obvious to say, but
we stopped building social housing, we stopped supporting nationalised industries, and then through the 2010s we had
policies so the markets would be calm, allies would be reassured and so on. There's been...
Sorry, it is not contagious. I should reassure those in the front row. We're past that point, but I apologise.
The public want to be reassured that their data is being held securely and that their data is...
A couple of years.
I was reassured that when there was...
Hear what you have to say. It's not necessarily reassuring, but it's certainly very, very well informed indeed. And
I think is not as demoralising as the pressure of having your ability
itself must feel horribly demoralised because all the family's hopes are poured into them, and then perhaps through no
role to demoralise the Democratic base, and they were already pretty.
You can be so demoralising at times.
That's
you try and do your best to get into it.
Just so as not to be demoralised, I wouldn't speak at that high altitude. Now,
to rationalise, to interpret, to make sense of them, rather than assuming that your job is to...
Madonna's was that it was interpreted in various ways. So some
I do not know whether Pope intended to interpret man narrowly, but one strand of contemporary...
You have to put yourself on the next island to interpret the bearings for the next set of islands. And when...
Needed to conclude.
Some people interpreted that to mean, don't worry about...
Alliance, which has always been a big motor, would have been strengthened by a departure. Bizarrely, it's been weakened.
The gaps among different faiths to strengthen this world with the message of peace.
Taking off thousands of individually moulded tiles, strengthening each one, and then
things are becoming a lot tighter, so really strengthening our partnership model and working alongside other channels.
Research with El Puente, built to strengthen on-the-ground campaigns with usable data.
Place in society, the kinds of jobs they have, the wealth they possess, and so on. All those kinds of the degree of
key properties it possesses. One is that it gets better with more data.
Doing of the person who possesses it, and therefore it can't be the basis.
Very precious about what they say or possessive about it, and we just really hit it off well. I think though.
So I love teaching Dostoevsky's Possessed, which partly has an influence on my Snow.
Constantly stoked up the idea that there's going to be rebellion.
If you apply pressure, you stoke the search for alternatives. The City of London.
Building on some of those comments, Ed Miliband may be stoked for heat pumps, and we know the
decent cricket, the best cricket innings that we've ever seen in Ben Stokes got them over the line at Headingley. So you could
before Conservatives winning Stoke, Labour winning Canterbury, but
taking each sentence seriously and deconstructing it and really structuring.
And looks at historical events in a way that sort of deconstructs narratives and arguments that have plagued the context.
I perceive it one of the really interesting things to deconstruct those weird 2 years we just had. But you'll remember.
This book is a fascinating essay where she deconstructs the myth of race and challenges ideas.
In the White House, and that seemed to suit you pretty well, just deconstructing your Twitter feed. And therefore I wondered if you
had been persecuting opponents within Argentina rather than
to freedom of speech, which is that your government might persecute you, right? And in my essay, I talk about this.
That comes from being a persecuted minority. That comes from the sense that people are going to...
Yazidi shrines in northern Iraq are heavily persecuted people, particularly by...
Lists as well around the world, less free, persecuted in many different parts of the world. And
these hopeless players could play really stunning pieces of music, and that was the origin of my...
I just knew it was our problem.
I was just a challenge for the Chinese government.
Yeah, and that's a stunning statistic because, if I just think about it from first principle.
War with the German Confederation, which resulted in a stunning French defeat and also the emergence of
forum. And I was stunned to find this was in the middle of January, that almost no
that an adopted child would fulfill the deepest longings of our soul to be parents, which of course internet and other technologies that fulfill that function, but caves and...
It took them 48 hours to fulfill that request. We were not in a rural community. We were here.
The NATO countries step up and fulfill their promise to up defence spending to 2% of their GDPs.
You're going to write, and you're writing it to fulfill your contract and to fulfill your, of course, your artistic aspirations.
Terrible agony. Devastated by mental illness, she has expressed the wish to die frequently.
And it truly is a devastating punishment.
Small goes wrong in someone's brain, but it has hugely devastating consequences, and they have a...
Where does come the Black Death, which is absolutely devastating, obviously.
Curable for the first time, and that was devastating. And they went on to tell me that my worst...
To just simply keep degrading. Most people in this audience
originally understood disappear or they degrade, and suddenly it doesn't mean the same to the person
is being totally degraded, debased, and discredited by extreme.
NATO forces stop training Ukrainian forces. It's to degrade the defensive capabilities of the Ukrainian state.
For these plastic bags to degrade naturally. Following California.
Weeks ago or so, we thought he was about to invade Greenland. Then he decided he wasn't.
That 2014 was when this started, when Russia invaded Ukraine and occupied it. We did nothing. That's a separate story.
And so when Russia did invade Ukraine, it could predict the impact on Western.
We haven't seen anything like that since Napoleon was trying to invade. I mean, it's really that extraordinary.
Last year, that he was preparing to invade Ukraine. And I set a consistent...
A C-3PO who is administering Botox to a stormtrooper. There's another stormtrooper who's in...
His bloody axe. The Chinese were administering examination systems. So no, it's definitely not.
I feel like we've got some Nobel Prizes that are waiting to be administered and kind of given out to people who are...
Charity which administers the giving of individuals, corporates, foundations and groups of donors.
Helping support the Bell Burnell Graduate Scholarship Fund, which is administered by the Institute of Physics. My last...
To make a better parallel, but for economists, it's very unusual to have a sudden stop in...
I wasn't doing enough to condemn systemic racism, to do my part in fighting systemic...
To very strongly criticize and condemn. And the problem that...
They are, however, much slower to condemn...
all abstained from the vote to condemn Russia for its annexations of Ukraine. So that, we should take that all.
I think picking up on what you said about this desire to be betrayed is also this desire to be remembered. That's something I think about a lot.
White people will feel like they've been betrayed, and then we'll have it on civil unrest.
And that was of no meaning whatsoever. He could betray him without a second thought. And that's what he
always had a plan of expulsion. It's just betrayed by the acceptance of the 47 partition
plan. I don't think you understand politics.
That is very thoroughly being betrayed because we are seeing an elder generation pass on.
Pinning this, and that eroded over time. So now there's a lot of active...
For various reasons, the nation state has been eroded and undermined. And they've...
idea had been quietly eroding and became visible.
Conventional military overmatch are somehow being eroded through conflict finding these new forms.
Disinformation is eroding the ethical standards that we hold for ourselves and others.
I know it can probably be a little bit discouraging at times when you see different things get passed.
That very large donations will be discouraged. The interesting thing is that some of the parties...
Under conditions where girls and women were actively discouraged from pursuing education, especially.
And they discourage public transport, but cars, they kind of enable that sort of
The government fundings programs, currently discourage air-to-air heat pumps because there's a lack of funding.
Brought forward their 5G development and invested an extra $500 million. There was provision in the $10 billion.
A lot of the conversations around impact investing and so on really focus on the win-wins. So we can all
Asia, sustainability and income investing. They offer funds for the core of any equity portfolio.
And it was so wonderful. For a writer's point of view, I wouldn't invest in it, but from a writer's point of view, it was.
That this is kind of the minimum time that's been shown to be effective in investing yourself that leads to compounding effects. But
Vocabio, available in Google Play. Download, discover, improve your English.